Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I am excited to be with you today for the Regional Arts Commission's virtual town hall. My name is Vanessa Cooksey, and I'm the president and CEO. And today's agenda, we only have two topics to cover, very meaningful topics. We'll probably be together for about 30 to 45 minutes, but excited to share a couple of reflections. 2025 has been an amazing year for RAC and two very important milestones that we celebrated, which I'll talk about. And we want to give you a preview of what's ahead at RAC in 2026. I will leave time for your questions. If you do have questions while I am presenting, please put those in the Q&A. Use the Q&A feature. Our team, Jay, Angie, Jason, we are all here and we'll be monitoring the Q&A, and I'll answer as many questions as I can during today's session, and ones that I can't get to, we will follow up directly with you to ensure that your question gets answered. You also have the option of sending us an email to info@racstl.org. So again, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature for this meeting, and we will get to as many questions as we can. The ones that we can't, we will follow up directly. All right. I'd like to start this meeting because we're the end of the year and celebrating a milestone 40th anniversary for the Regional Arts Commission and my fifth anniversary as RAC's president and CEO. And the reason why I chose this picture for this slide is really what I am most grateful for, and that is the people that power this mission. We host an annual board staff retreat, and this year we invited some of our nonprofit grantees, our arts organization leaders, to participate in our board staff retreat to tell us more about their experiences, challenges, the wins that they're having as we start to think about and plan for the years ahead. And so it really is an awesome privilege to work with people who care deeply about the arts and ensuring that this region thrives because we have an amazing arts and culture sector. And so when I think about the last 40 years of RAC's impact, together we have grown a sector, an industry that contributes $868 million dollars in economic activity, nearly 12,000 jobs, 6,000 artist entrepreneurs. Over the last 40 years, RAC has invested $115 million dollars into a sector that has been recognized nationally for not only how approachable and affordable our arts experiences are, but how plentiful. We have 664 arts and culture nonprofits in St. Louis City and St. Louis County alone. And that is no small feat, in part to the public dollars that have been invested. I like to say public money for the public good. I'm also excited that when people come to St. Louis in 2022, we counted 8.2 million people million attendees for our arts and culture events. 20% of those don't live in the region. And of those people who travel to St. Louis for our arts and culture experiences, 82% of them said that they came to St. Louis for that particular arts and culture experience, and they would have traveled elsewhere had we not had that for them to experience. And that this arts and culture sector and the nonprofits, the visual arts and performing arts, was the primary reason for their visits. That's a lot to be proud of. We are also, through this investment of the last 40 years, have seen the growth in our arts districts and public art, whether it's Cherokee Street, the Grove, Kirkwood Performing Arts Center. All across this region, we have amazing public art and arts development that are proven tools for neighborhood revitalization and strengthening commercial corridors. So we have a lot to be proud of as an organization and as a sector for the transformative impact that we have had in the St. Louis community. I am also proud that in the last 5 years, we have done amazing things. You'll see on our website later today a 2025 year in review. And so I highly encourage you to visit racstl.org and take a look at all that we've accomplished together. I'll be sharing more reflections on the experience that I've had leading RAC over the last 5 years, but want to call out a couple of things specifically, namely our response to COVID. I joined RAC in November of 2020. It feels like eons ago, and but certainly it was only 5 years ago where we were really concerned about the future of RAC and the future of our arts and culture sector. And 110 arts organizations came together, hundreds of artists, to advocate for RAC to receive ARPA dollars, a historic $10 million investment. And that's the kind of advocacy that we are going to have to really ignite in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead, given the national attack that's happening on arts, state, local level. Not everybody appreciates what arts and culture do for our communities, for our economy, and we cannot be silent about the value that we add. And so please join me on January 15th, Missouri Citizens for the Arts. We're hosting a arts advocacy workshop at the Kirkwood Performing Arts Center from 3 to 5. This will be on our website, it'll be on our socials. Sign up. We need to get together and we need to prepare ourselves to go to Jeff City on February 4th and talk to our legislators about the importance of the work that we are doing to ensure that we hold the line for our funding and even impress upon our elected officials that it's time to lean into the arts and even grow what the investment that we're making because we know there's going to be a return. $115 million that produces $868 million in economic activity. That's a pretty solid return if you ask me. So now is the time for us to organize, to commit, and to advocate for the value and the power of the arts. I'm also really proud that this team of commissioners and team members has stewarded $51 million in revenue in the last 5 years, from 2020 to 2025. $51 million has been under the RAC's care, and most of it has come from hotel motel occupancy tax. We, of course, receive federal support through ARPA, but we've also received increased private philanthropy through individual support, corporate support from Edward Jones. We're very proud of the relationship that we're building with Edward Jones. And year over year, RAC has received zero findings audit, clean audits year over year, affirming that RAC is a good steward of the public trust. Again, public good, public money for the public good. And of that $51 million on average over the last 5 years, our administrative expenses have been 12%, meaning that $45 million has gone back into the sector to arts organizations, artists through our grant making and our programs, because that is what RAC was created to do: promote, foster, and encourage the sector. And so I'm excited about what the next 40 years will bring for RAC and how St. Louis will be better, different, stronger because of the amazing people that are behind arts and culture in our community. Now, again, if you have questions as I am presenting, please put them in the Q&A function and we will get to them. I want to talk now a little bit about what is ahead in 2026. We've got a new strategic roadmap. When I joined RAC, we had just launched in March of 2020 a strategic plan, the Advocate Partner Catalyst Plan, 5-year plan that took us from 2020 to 2024. And we have spent the last 18 months focused on a key question: how will the St. Louis region be better and different because RAC exists? And we wanted to take a longer view for our impact. So from our 40th to our 50th anniversary, What impact do we want to have? And so we are launching a new strategic roadmap. We are making some changes to our grant making in FY26 in preparation for a full launch in FY27 through 30. And we have an update about the Community Arts Training Institute that I'm excited to share. This is the direction that we're headed. This is our strategic roadmap that will guide our work from 2026 through 2030. When we, over the last 18 months, we have had conversations with our stakeholders, our grantees, and as a staff and a board, we wanted to make sure that there was clarity around the value that RAC brings to this region. So we looked at what are our assets. We have amazing people, amazing team members, commissioners. We have money, of course, hotel motel occupancy tax. We have money to invest. And of course, we have data. We have been measuring the impact of our sector for the last 30 years with our partners, Americans for the Arts, through the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study. We will continue to do that. What is our primary work? Over the years, we've tried a lot of different things, and sometimes we've tried to be all things to all people, and that's not a sustainable strategy. So, what can you count on RAC to do over the next 10 years to have impact in this community? And that's invest through our grant making, amplify the stories of our creatives and arts and culture organizations and programming through our St. Louis Arts brand, which has grown. We launched it 2 years ago and already have 3 million unique users, people who value and come to St. Louis Arts to know and find out information about what's happening this weekend and hear stories about the artists and arts organizations that make St. Louis special and unique. And we will lead. We've been a leading organization in this sector, in this region, and we will continue to do that and help people convene and come together around data and information that will move this region forward. What are our goals? How will we measure our success? Several decades ago, back in the early 90s, we used to do a study called the Leisure Time Study, where we asked residents of St. Louis, how do you spend your leisure time, your free time? And many of them named arts and culture activities in that study. We want to bring that study back, and we want to ensure that 1 in 3 residents name arts and culture as a top 3 leisure activity. We want to grow the impact, presence, and brand for St. Louis Arts, telling more stories, amplifying the good work that our arts organizations, arts programs, and artists are doing, not just in St. Louis, but all over the world. We want to be named in the top 20 of SMU Data Arts Vibrancy Index. We've been on the list and we've been off the list, but we want to get on that list and stay on it. I like to think of it as the Oscars of local arts agencies who have a very clear methodology for how we're investing in the arts sector for the benefit of this region. We also want to influence greater dollars being spent and benefiting the region when we have more visitors come to St. Louis and more residents participating in arts activities across the region. So we want to go from $248 million to $325 million in event-related arts and culture audience spending. We think if we do these things right, who benefits? The people that live here will have welcoming and innovative arts and culture. People who don't live here will think about St. Louis as a go-to arts and culture destination. And we're starting to see that now. We've received a lot of amazing earned media stories about St. Louis over the last couple of years and this year in particular about what our arts and culture offer to people who want to travel to St. Louis. And then, of course, the region. We want our artists to thrive with living wages and our arts organizations to continue to grow. And that helps to contribute to the economic vitality of this region. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to say that St. Louis is a national model for elevating arts and culture as a catalyst for placemaking. And when we do, the way that we're defining placemaking is, would an individual or a family choose to live, work, play, visit St. Louis? And we think that if we do these things well over the next 5 years, the answer to that will be a resounding yes. And that will prepare us for the next 5 years that by the time we get to our 50th anniversary, St. Louis will be better and different because RAC exists. So I'm excited. We spent a lot of time really thinking about how we want to have an impact, how we want to measure that. And my hope is that through this visual and through this explanation, it is very clear and you can find your work and how you can contribute to making this our reality. Speaking of reality and finances and how we're going to use our money, every town hall, I like to give a financial update. And this is that time sharing the year over year hotel tax revenue growth from a percent change perspective. Clearly, we're had 2019 as our baseline, took a big dip in 2020, and our recovery was actually pretty robust and significant over a 2 to 3 year period. But as you can see from the last 3 fiscal years, and our fiscal year starts January the 1st, we've seen significantly slower growth and almost flat single digit growth year over year. And so we are mindful of that. What we know is our expenses have grown, not from the administrative perspective, but just what it takes to run an organization in some ways are outpacing what our revenues are doing. And also, as you can see here, over the last 7 years, as we receive a forecast that is based on really high quality travel research and data and what we can expect for the coming year from a revenue perspective. And some years we beat that forecast, and but as you can see over the last several years, we've not met forecast, and that gap is anywhere from 5 to 7%, which actually translates to $200,000 to $500,000. And so our revenue growth is slowing. The demand for investment in the arts is growing. Our arts organizations and artists are feeling the pinch in the economy and needing to spend more to create. And so we are very mindful of the financial headwinds and volatility that we've experienced over the last 2 years in particular, and anticipating we will see more of that in our fiscal year 2026. So, given our new strategic direction and needing to think about how do we evolve our grant making practices to ensure we achieve our strategic direction and our goals, as well as anticipated financial volatility, RAC in 2026, our fiscal year, January 1st through December 31st, we will not have a new grant application cycle in FY26. This applies to organizational support grants, program support grants, and artist support grants. This year, the board voted to designate a specific fund for crisis response grants. This was in response to NEA grant rescissions, the tornado, and the government shutdown. And we were able to, within 2 weeks, designate funds to respond to large scale emergencies and disasters. If we have that in FY26, which is highly likely given uh, the state of our world, we will activate crisis response funds as needed in FY26. So, what I am talking about in terms of no new grant applications applies specifically to our annual grants for organization support, program support, and artist support. We are distributing money in FY26 for arts organizations, programs, and artists that submitted an application in our FY25, so this calendar year. You will be eligible for review to receive a grant in FY26. So part of what will move organizations and individuals through the process to receive dollars in FY26 For arts orgs completing the SMU Data Arts profile, we're developing a partnership with SMU Data Arts to ensure that we are collecting information that really speaks to not just the economic impact, but the operational efficiencies and benefits of the sector. So we're looking forward to joining SMU Arts, the SMU Data Arts profile work so that our impact can be leveraged and communicated at the national level. We will have an eligibility assessment to ensure that your 501(c)(3) status is still in good standing, and also ensure that if you received a grant in FY25, that all required final grant reports are submitted. So, of the pool of applicants, these are the key things that will ensure that you're eligible to receive a grant in FY 2026. Our target is that those grants will be paid at 80% of the FY25 award amount, and payments will be made in Q4 instead of in Q3. What we know from our budgeting process is the first half of the year, we're expecting revenues to be down. And so we want to ensure that we can continue to pay grants in full in our calendar year. And so we are shifting payments from Q3 to Q4. You will receive detailed communications about the process and the timeline for our grant making under these key pillars in Q2 of 2026. So, as we have always been very transparent about our financial situation and ways in which we are managing and stewarding our resources, none of that has changed. The grants team will be in touch with all grant applicants from FY25 with detailed communications about the processes and timelines for receiving resources, grants in FY26. So this applies to arts organizations and arts programs. For our artist grant making, our artist support grants, FY26 artist support grants will be selected from the pool of FY25 grant applications. Same thing applies in terms of eligibility. The completion of final grant reports will be important to determine eligibility, and the grant amount for FY26 will be 80% of the FY25 requested amount. Again, we will pay artist support grants in Q4 versus in Q3. Artists will receive detailed communications about the process, their eligibility, and the timeline for receiving a grant in FY26 from the RAC grants team in Q2. So I will pause there, and I'm giving time in case you have any questions to get those in the Q&A. And then I will share the last update for this meeting. The Community Arts Training Institute, fondly known as CAT, for nearly 30 years, CAT has been a integral part of RAC's community work and engagement. We've engaged artists, social workers, educators, community organizers, and civic leaders who are committed to social change. Well, we are spinning CAT off into its own nonprofit in 2026. We've got 27 cohorts under our belt and over 400 alum. And we believe that not only is it time for CAT to grow and expand its work more in a larger regional footprint than what RAC is able to do through its grant making, but because of our focus that is part of our new strategic direction, RAC will not be producing programs. So this year, we successfully partnered with the Gateway Foundation to move the Gia Obata Fellowship back to the Gateway Foundation full time. We partnered with the Gateway Foundation back in 2019 to launch that program, which has had great success. And so RAC will not produce programs going forward under our new strategic direction. We want to focus on our grant making. We want to focus on storytelling and amplifying the work of our artists and arts organizations. So we won't have programs to manage. We want to put more dollars into investing, amplify, and leading. And so RAC has committed to multi-year financial support for CAT. So while it is not technically a startup because the program has existed for nearly 30 years, it will be independent and it will take on all of the administrative and operational expenses that it has benefited from being a part of RAC as a new independent organization. And we want to ensure that as a standalone nonprofit that the CAP Institute will grow and thrive for decades to come. So we have a vested interest in its continued success, and we are excited. The CAT Task Force, a group of alum, faculty, and CATs have worked tirelessly over the last year to organize how best for CAT to grow and continue to have impact in this region. And so I'm very grateful to our board and staff who have worked to ensure a successful transition for the CAT Institute. So now I will answer questions from the Q&A. I'll ask Jay to pose those because I can't see them in presentation mode and answer the questions that you have submitted so far.
Yeah, Vanessa, we still have a little bit of confusion from some folks about eligibility for grants in 2026, specifically folks that are either new organizations that did not receive grants in 2025, as well as folks that did not submit an application last year in 2025 from an artist perspective. If you could just explain that just a little bit further. I think some folks are just wanting a little bit more clarification.
Got it. We are not having a new grant application process. So in years past, in January, we would put information on the website about what grants are available, what the guidelines are, the application questions, and this year we are not doing that. We are taking the grant applications from 2025 and moving those forward into 2026, and that will serve as the pool of eligible artist arts organizations and programs that will receive grants in 2026. So yes, if you did not apply for a grant in 2025, there will not be an opportunity to apply in 2026. We are still working through the guidelines and the eligibility, and in second quarter, you'll receive information for those organizations and artists that did apply will receive information about what is required to be eligible to receive grants in FY26. So yes, for if you did not apply in FY25, there will not be an opportunity to apply in FY26. We are using FY26 as an opportunity to restructure our grant making in alignment with our new strategic plan, and we will have a new grant application and a new grant process in 2027.
On that note, if folks applied last year but didn't get the grant, but were still eligible, they're wanting to know what the situation is for them.
Right now, I'm unable to answer that question because while we have a approved operational budget, we have still not closed out our fiscal year 25 to know what our ending cash balance will be, what we're taking into FY26. And so, specific example, we planned for $3 million grant budget for FY25. Our revenues ended up being a little better over the last several years. We had some reserves, so we ended up with a $5 million. The board approved an additional $2 million in grant funding in this fiscal year. And so we have to know how much money we have to grant in order to actually approve grants. So we were able to give more grants this year because of some of the financial volatility that we are anticipating. We don't know what our final grant budget will be. So I can't say if you did not get a grant this year, you won't get it next year. That is to be determined, which is why we're waiting until Q2 of 26 to officially communicate, because historically, the first quarter is always very challenging financially for RAC. And so we need to clear that so that we know exactly how much money we will have for grant making, because we are committed to paying all the full amount of the grant in the fiscal year, in our fiscal year.
Someone wanted to know if we will be accepting applications in 2027 if we have made a decision on that.
Absolutely. Our plan is to communicate our new grant process, our new grant application by September of 2026 in preparation for grants to reopen and accept new applications in alignment with our strategic roadmap for 27, 28, 29, and 2030. So, yes, new applications will be accepted in 2027 for sure, in alignment with our new strategic roadmap.
Could you explain a little bit about why RAC needs to hold payments to Q4 of why we can't give them out in Q1 or Q2?
Got it. And I've shared this chart in the past. People who know me know I track every single month of revenue that we receive. And over the last two fiscal years, FY25 and FY24, we've seen in general, actually, let me take a step back. Historically, this dates back tens of years. RAC receives a majority of its revenue in the back half of the year, primarily October through December, sometimes August through December, but post COVID and with more economic volatility that we have seen in the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen volatility in our tax receipts as early as May or June. And so, for those who've been around a long time, you will remember RAC actually used to pay grants on a quarterly basis. So, we would make an award, we give money out quarterly. And when COVID hit, when we needed more money in the sector, we made a conscious decision to pay the full grant amount in our fiscal year. Not only did that make sense for us from a financial stewardship and audit perspective, not having to track receivables and payables over 18 months, but it was more useful for our arts organizations, arts programs, and artists receiving grants. And so we want to continue to be able to do that, but we also have to recognize that the volatility in our receipts is extending beyond just the first quarter. So holding grants until Q4 will ensure that we have the dollars available, cash available to pay the grant amount in full.
Some folks are wanting to know some advice on where they might look for other grant funding in 2026.
That's a good question. I know that we have very generous individuals in our community, corporations. We're in a unique time in our country, in our state. Uh, Public resources are challenged. So, while I don't have a specific recommendation in this moment, I appreciate the question. And as RAC has traditionally done over the years, through our Culturalist platform, we post opportunities for artists, and of course on our website, as we find out about opportunities that are available for arts organizations and arts programs, we will communicate that.
Something else I want to mention is our Culturalist platform. So if you go to stlouis.culturalist.com, I want to make sure I actually got that right. Yes, I always flip it. We post opportunities, and this is a place where artists and organizations can sign up and not only network with other artists and organizations, but to be able to see the opportunities that we have, not only in St. Louis, but also national opportunities for artists and arts organizations to take part in, including grants. So I encourage everyone. You can find it on our website at racstl.org, but it's a great resource that you can find a lot of really wonderful things.
Mhm. Yep. I'll take one more question, being mindful of.
Sure, sure. We have a few that are pointing to this. So, for the multi-year ARPA organizations, the folks that received the federal ARPA funding through the city of St. Louis, what are their eligibility, considering that they didn't apply in FY25 because they received ARPA money? So, what are their eligibility for 2026 or 2027?
They will be eligible in 2027. Well, let me say this. Uh, we had multiple grants for ARPA funds. So depending on if you're an artist and or an arts organization, for arts organizations who received ARPA funds that were 1 year, they actually were eligible to apply in FY25 for our larger cultural tourism grants, from which there was a MOU in place and the grants were significantly larger. Those were over a 3 year period. And so, as a reminder, um, those organizations who received the MOU grants were not eligible to apply until 2027 anyway, because the dollars that they received were over a 3 year period. So they weren't eligible to apply in 2026. In our FY 2026, their eligibility, as is stated in the subrecipient agreement, is for FY27. All right. Well, again, being mindful of time, I want to end this particular town hall with a thank you. We've had an amazing year of celebration of amplifying the good work of the artists and arts organizations that make St. Louis a great place to live, work, and play. National media outlets, local media outlets, people in general talk about how amazing our arts and culture offerings and experiences are. And that is worthy to be celebrated and protected. And so RAC will be closed. Our offices will be closed December the 22nd through January 2nd for a well-deserved rest. I hope that all of you receive well-deserved rest, and I wish each and every one of you a happy holidays. We will be in touch at the start of the year. Thank you.